welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am Mick Alphaneme. I hope you all had a great week. I'm sure you've conquered everything in sight because you're a winner, because you're a champion. All right, so this article here is from the cryptobasic.com. I saw a ton of articles written on this, so let's find out what's going on here. It's from the cryptobasic.com and it's titled, Atlanta Federal Reserve Bank mentions XRP as an international payment medium. It doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, XRP is being referenced or used by so many different banks. Ripple has partnerships with so many different banks that when another one comes out talking about XRP, I'm just like, yep, of course. Like right now, my what I want to see is just everything up and running. That's what I'm waiting on here now. We're highly aware that we have hundreds of banks that are interested in using XRP or are already signed up to use XRP. Let's start reading this little article right here. It says, the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, a U.S. Federal Reserve Bank district, recently called attention to Ripple's business model and how the company uses XRP to meet cross-border settlement needs. According to the Reserve Bank, XRP is seen as, quote, an international payment medium, unquote. These mentions are made in the latest Policy Hub iteration from the Atlanta Fed titled, quote, an introduction to Web3 with applications for financial services, unquote. The report essentially highlights the promise of Web3 and the use of digital assets. The report also underscores the growing adoption rate of Web3. We were just talking about this the other day, all these banks that will be going digital. And if you really been paying close attention, you'll see a lot of them are shutting down physical branches and they're not opening new ones. We covered that a couple months ago. It says, and blockchain technology among public institutions such as central banks. It calls attention to Project Mariana, a proof of concept introduced by the Bank for International Settlements, the Bank of France, and other financial institutions, highlighting the goal of Project Mariana, which is the facilitation of more efficient cross-border settlements. The Atlanta Fed article mentions Ripple and Stellar. Ooh, they got Stellar in there too. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. It mentions Ripple and Stellar as two notable blockchain-focused companies to introduce cost-effective value transfers. And this is what's important here, is also, if you've been keeping up with things internationally, you'll know that between Europe and the Brics nations, they're trying to do this decoupling scenario, which is very interesting and weird in my humble opinion, since both sides rely on each other so heavily, but they want to sort of decouple in this multipolar world, which means you're going to need something in the middle. You've heard me say this many times. You need something in the middle as an intermediary of trade between the two sides, the two opposing sides who they want to dominate each other, but now they're starting to even up in power and posturing, so to speak, where for a while it probably will be an evenly multipolar world. Who knows? I mean, I'm just speculating here. But if that does happen, they're going to need something in the middle. That would be the new financial system, XLM, XRP, Algorand. You know, there's quite a few bank coins, XDC, LCX, I mean, Cello, but they all serve their different purposes. Wholesale, retail, universal basic income. Watch out for that. That's another thing. With things going the way that they are, holy smokes. I can see in a few years' time, universal basic income being pushed in a lot of different places. It already has been. They've been trying to roll it out in some of the states, I believe. But anyway, so they all serve their different purposes, but they'll be right there in the middle. They are key mechanisms. So it says here, according to the report, Ripple's business model involves the provision of financial services with the use of XRP. The report further notes that XRP is, quote, roughly envisioned as an international payment medium or wholesale settlement coin. Boom. Boom. And if they're starting out and it's still early, and it is still early, I'm going to let a professional confirm that it's still early for the bank coins later on in an article about Algorand. Everybody knows it's still early. When you're talking about setting up world infrastructures, we're still early. I know people have been holding since forever. I know. I understand that perfectly. But it doesn't change the actuality of what we're dealing with. We're still in the nascent industry, right? But I can only imagine once everything is up and running. Listen, if we're starting out, circling back around, if we're starting out with hundreds of banks, it's only reasonable that we would have thousands at some point, thousands. If we're trying to replace Swift or we're going to integrate with Swift, whatever it's going to be, we'll see. They have what, over 10,000 banks? Come on, we can at least get 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 at some point. It'll take time. But that's when the big money begins to flow. You know, especially these smaller banks that are getting squashed by the bigger banks, they're going to need something like this if they want to survive. I've said that, didn't I? Now you see that the government is outright telling them, hey, listen, you have a whole lot of, bearing when it comes to these commercial loans. I mean, commercial real estate loans. And commercial real estate, that sword could be coming down to chop a few heads coming up soon. My apologies for the phrasing, but it paints an expedient picture. But they're saying, listen, you get into trouble, we're not going to help you. You get into trouble, we're not going to, it's not really a bailout. It's a technical bailout because they're just forcing the big banks to buy up the little banks and such like that. It's not really the bailout how typically it's thought to be, where they're just giving them an infusion of capital. But they're saying they're not going to do anything for those smaller banks, right? So the smaller banks are scrambling at this point to look for a way out, a way to do better, a way to shear things up, a way to save capital, a way to make more capital, a way to bring in more business. And that's where we come in. But first, we have to get past this case. Unfortunately, they still have those barricades in the way, but we're working towards it. But we have to keep focused, have to stay focused. Can't let anything distract us. So now, let's move on to another article here. Every day there's something major coming out, every single day. So this article here is from the cryptobasic.com and it's titled, Jeremy Hogan gives ruling date for SEC versus Ripple lawsuit. So I guess another person wants to take a shot at guessing when all of this is going to be over. Let's hear out the esteemed Jeremy Hogan. It says, attorney Jeremy Hogan, a partner at Hogan & Hogan, has made a new prediction about when Judge Annalisa Torres, the Honorable Annalisa Torres, let's put some respect on that name and hope that something favorable comes out of it, would issue a decision in the SEC versus Ripple case. In a tweet yesterday, Attorney Hogan said Judge Torres would issue a summary judgment decision mid-July. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, listen. So Brad Garlinghouse pretty much was like a couple weeks after the Hinman documents are released and such, which would put it technically at around beginning to middle of July, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Now Jeremy Hogan is saying mid-July. That's two, if I'm correct. That's two saying the same thing. They're coming to the same conclusion. There has to be a reason. I'll take it. Says Hogan, who has closely followed the lawsuit from the onset. Don't get me excited. Hey, Mr. Hogan, Brad, Mr. Garlinghouse, don't get me excited now. All right. Then next thing you know, gets pushed back again. All right. I know everybody's just speculating like I may. Says Hogan, who has closely followed the lawsuit from the onset, pointed out a pattern Judge Torres has followed while issuing major rulings in the case. According to Attorney Hogan, the judge has issued major rulings every 9 weeks. Oh, you got to show. I like that. You have an eagle's eye. I'm glad you caught that. Interesting. Including September 29th, December 19th, March the 6th, May the 16th. It says here, it is worth noting that on September 29th, Judge Torres ordered the United States Securities and Exchange Commission to surrender Hinman's documents to Ripple Labs following a heated legal battle over 18 months. On December 19th, Judge Torres ruled on the parties' request to seal the documents. On May 16th, I'm skipping a little bit here, but once again, if you want to read all of this article, it's a very good article, cryptobasic.com. On May 16th, Judge Torres issued her decision on the parties' request. And then they go into a little bit more here. Okay, so mid-July. Well, things are starting to move fast, folks, and might be winding down. But you know what's interesting is that that's when the party really begins. Now we get to really see if we get a favorable outcome here. And I believe we can win. We get to start to see everything take off. This could be exciting times coming up, but we will see. We'll remain patient and, we'll stay abreast of everything. So now, this article here is from U.Today, and it's titled, XRP Ledger Wallet Zoom announces major rebranding details. All right, let's see what's going on here. XRP Ledger non-custodial wallet Zoom is seeing a major rebranding, but why? Is there reasoning? as it has taken on a new name that I have no idea how to pronounce it. It looks like Zaman or Zaman. I'm going to say Zaman. Zoom will now be known as Zaman. I'm going to pronounce it like that until I'm corrected. It says, in an official blog post, Zoom announced it has evolved into a new era, which does not merely represent a name change. I was about to ask about that. Is there some sort of mechanism change? But also a transition from a lab concept into a fully realized XRPL powerhouse. All right, I like what I'm hearing. Let's scroll down here. It says it explains the motive behind the move. Its decision to evolve into Zaman considers the existing landscape of brands within the industry. It discovered other businesses with names similar to Zoom in the cryptocurrency field and decided to change its name to Zaman to stand out and avoid any potential confusion. I see. Okay. Thus, but there's always going to be imitators. You know, that's just the way that it is in business. Unfortunately, there's going to be companies that on purpose now copy the Zaman name and try to find something similar to that. And you know why, right? It says, thus, with the shift, Zoom believes its evolution will reach a new frontier, uniting XRPL Labs and Zoom under one stronger identity, Zaman. Previously, its progress had been periodically hampered by confusion due to the separate entities of the XRPL Labs and Zoom. Okay, that's very good. So you're bringing everything all together. Okay. As well as unintentional links to other entities in the XRPL ecosystem. And I think they're going to see a lot more business considering a lot of things that are going on with wallets. I'll just leave it at that. And I've heard a lot of people saying, well, you know, before they weren't really using hot wallets or interested in hot wallets. This is a hot wallet, correct? But that now people may be looking into using certain hot wallets and such like that for self-custody. So I think a lot of business in the future will be coming their way. So this is a very good move here. And I'm very happy to see any progression that's happening on the XRPL or any of the bank coins whatsoever. All right, so now let's move on here to another article. It's another article from the U.Today. And it's titled, XRP Accounts Hit Big Milestone as Optimism Increases. So it says here, Thomas Silkjayer, head of analytics and compliance at the XRP Ledger Foundation, made it known on Twitter that the XRPL has just smashed a new milestone. The number of accounts that have been activated on XRP Ledger is now 5 million. Silkjayer says he ran some fresh stats on XRPL and noted that 5 million account milestone has been reached. He says that although 4.7 million accounts exist currently, at the time the stats were logged a few days ago, 5,002,458 were active. According to XRP Ledger Services, which tracks XRPL's growth, there are currently 4,705,871 XRP accounts. The total XRP in these accounts equates to 57.7 billion XRP. Wow. Meanwhile, only 1,035 accounts contain 0 XRP. All right. Silkjayer explains that while the ledger reports 4.7 million accounts, the real number of accounts that have been activated on the ledger is 5 million. Either way, it's a good milestone to have, and it shows that we continue to expand, continue to grow, things continue to move forward. And listen, the future is much brighter than now, but we've been seeing great things as of now. I'm very happy with the direction everything has been moving in. All right, so now let's move on to one more XRP article. There's so much XRP news, my word. So this is another article from U.Today. Remember, make sure to check them out. They're doing a great job over there. And it's titled, Ripple President Excited as Momentum Builds with New Milestones. Okay, Ripple President Monica Long, the esteemed Monica Long that's pushing the on-demand liquidity everywhere, has been just dominating across the globe, doing a great job. And I expect even bigger things in the future, even though Monica Long has done miraculous things the last few years. But let's read this a little bit here. It says, Ripple President Monica Long highlights the continuous advancement Ripple has seen in the last couple of weeks, which she says have been some of the busiest of the company. Excited by the recent Metaco acquisition, the Ripple president is optimistic about the great impact both companies can make together. This is what her tweet says, last couple of weeks have been some of our busiest at Ripple, but I wouldn't have it any other way. we're so excited to welcome the Medico team and looking forward to what we can build together. In the past week, Ripple took on the crypto custody market with the acquisition of Medico, a Swiss-based provider of digital asset custody and tokenization technology. This came shortly after Judge Torres rejected the SEC's request to seal the Hinman documents in a decision. I'm sorry. When I hear that, I just picture Gary Gensler pounding his fist on a desk and a tear coming out, a single tear coming down his cheek. I know, shaking my head, I know, but that makes me happy. It does. Anyway, it says Long thinks that the decision on the Hinman emails is a victory for transparency. Also, just iterating what Brad said. I want a victory. Just give me the victory in court already. Let's go. Let's win. Let's get this done. And let's continue this upward trajectory. All right. The founder of Crypto Law, John Deaton, believes that the Ripple president is on the right track when she claims that the disclosure of Hinman's emails is a win for transparency. So listen, this is one good thing about the let's just say XRP army is that they stick together. You know, at least the people at the top, they stick together. They're fighting together. They support each other. And we're going to bring home this victory. That's how I personally feel. It's not financial advice. It's not a guarantee, but I feel we're going to bring home this victory. It says, quote, "We've been fighting on behalf of the whole industry," unquote. Long stated as regards the SEC lawsuit in a recent CoinDesk interview, adding that the company remains optimistic about hearing from the court this year. I remain optimistic as well, and I hope that we do. We have so much that we can accomplish this year once we can get past that little hurdle. And I think it's going to set off the rest of the bank coins too. They can go wild, and it'll make for a fun time. It definitely will. And we can get that first wave of capital coming through inevitably. I mean, if things are going to go successful, I think that's inevitable. Not financial advice, right? Just my humble opinion. So let's move on here. All right. So now we're going to move on to a little bit of Algorand news. They continue to dominate, do a great job. This is an article from CoinDesk.com. It's titled "Accelerating Real-World Use Cases on the Algorand Blockchain." We know Algorand has been dominating in every possible way, in every possible market and sector that they can, and they've been doing a great job. They're the most balanced bank coin family, in my humble opinion, and they're going to continue to do well in the future. You know, let's read this little tidbit here. It says, this is from Minway. It says, "We're building a blockchain that feels slick to use. Whether it's the average person sending money to a loved one, a user interacting with a financial product, or a developer building an app. We want everyone to have a seamless experience interacting with the Algorand blockchain. It's all about the UX. We recently released Algo Kit, which is all about giving developers the tools they need, allowing them to set up a dev environment on Algorand in less than 10 minutes. So they can focus their time on what matters, building cool products." CoinDesk said, asks, "I've definitely seen Algo Kit mentioned. And from what I saw in the demo, it seems like something that even I could use without too much of a technical background, which is great. This is what brings in business, making it easier. We've seen Ripple trying to make things simpler. We've seen Stellar definitely moving at a lightning pace to make things simpler, especially via BPV. BPV made it super easy and free to roll out a lot of different, I believe, sandboxes and infrastructures. And I believe that's only going to increase what they're offering is only going to go a little bit further. And of course, Algorand has been doing this for quite some time. So that way, no business can say, well, it's too much complicated. It's too much paperwork. There's too much infrastructure. We got to bring people in to learn all of this different stuff. No, they're saying here, we're going to hand it to you. It's easy. 10 minutes, boom, you can deploy. Boom, you can start to develop things. And that's how you do good business. Good business isn't done with complications, done with ease. All right, so let's continue on here. Minway says, "I appreciate that insight because that's exactly what we're looking to achieve. It's about lowering the barrier for anyone to enter into the ecosystem. And of course, developers are such a critical part of that." I agree. It sounds so intuitive, but it's very deliberate. We want to make it easier for developers to get right to building. Excellent. That's exactly what I want. That's going to bring more capital. It's going to bring more business. That's going to help Algorand expand and dominate and keep Algorand at the top of the heap or near the top of the heap. It says here, "We have some pretty neat templates and integrations that we're looking to launch later this year." So we're looking for announcements later this year. There you go. All right, keep on going, Algorand, doing a good job. I'm very happy with this. It says we're looking to launch later this year that will make it even better and faster for developers to build on AlgoKit. It will be an iterative process. V1 is an important first step, but we're going to keep doing more to make it easier and better. Look out for some big announcements in the fall. And that's a perfect place to end. Big announcements in the fall. All right. So, and Algorand never disappoints. So I'm interested to see what they're going to have coming out. All right. So now let's move on here. So now we're going to move on to a little bit of Stellar related news. So if you remember, Stellar has been dominating, setting up all types of corridors and infrastructures in Africa. Never forget that. Africa is on the rise. You just had Zimbabwe unleash a ton of gold coins, right? Tokenized digital gold coins. And that's not on Stellar. But here's the thing. With Stellar, Ripple, and Algorand, Cardano's also there, and Hedera. So let me make sure I put them in there because they are also in Africa deeply. But with the new financial system there, at some point in the future, all that capital, all that value that Africa is unleashing, it can, not a guarantee, can flow across these blockchains, these bank coins. So to have Stellar there and have an offering such as Kotani Pay, that's just one. That's just one. But they have Kotani Pay there, and Kotani Pay has been moving at a lightning speed, breakneck pace, trying to set up things, trying to make business partnerships. They've been doing a good job. So anyway, we have this tweet here from Kotani Pay. It says, in a fragmented payment ecosystem, it can be frustrating for Web3 businesses. There go Web3 again. I told you Web3 is going to bring a lot of value. It says Web3 businesses to access local payment solutions. But with our API, you can access banks and mobile money for the best on/off ramp experience. So here's another thing I want to take into account. Look at how everyone on Stellar is making a huge push this year. You see that? Last year it slowed down a lot. This year they picked up because everybody sees regulations in the next year or two around the world. Various regulations are going to start rolling out. You got MiCA legislation rolling out in Europe in 2024. And I do agree. There was a commenter that said the U.S. probably will follow behind Europe. And I agree with that. But also there was a regulator, not regulator, but there was someone in the government from the United States that said the same thing. That was an exact quote. They said, maybe we can learn from the MiCA legislation that was rolled out in Europe. Right. So that supports our thoughts that the United States may play off of MiCA legislation. But who knows? We'll see. But I believe that can happen. But anyway, we're seeing a major push from Velo, a major push from LightNet, EveryNet, major push from Kotani, major push from BPV, major pushes from Stronghold. You got to put it all together. This is the biggest surge in a long time. And we haven't even gotten regulations yet. Can you imagine when we're unleashed? But anyway, I like to read things like this. You can access banks and mobile money, and, we'll see how it works. But, there's been a huge push for more interaction between people on the ground in Africa and banks. A lot of people are just moving with cash. A lot of people, that's pretty wise, actually, for a lot of different reasons. Or, they're using other things, just standalone wallets. That's pretty good, too, in my humble opinion. But sure, we'll take that bank money if they want to allow that bank money to start flowing into some of these projects, some of these bank coins across some of these DLTs, sure. But the tokenization is what's important because Africa is on the rise when it comes to businesses. Oh yeah, they're taking off, baby. Just like Latin America. So over the next 5 to 10 years, and look, you got to understand, I think in the short term, but I also think in the long term. I'm a long-term investor. I'm looking at the big picture. So short term, sure. Things can take off. You get regulations. You get that first initial wave of capital. You get a pop. It's fun times. But I'm looking at that generational wealth jump in some of these bank coins, right? No guarantee, but that's going to come over time after they set a lot of different things up. That comes with the tokenization, the retail CBDC taking some of that money, really having the unbanked, fully utilizing wallets on the Stellar blockchain, which there still has to be a much bigger push for that, much bigger push. That hasn't happened yet because regulation is going to hold that back. But these are steps here where we're getting offerings like Kotani Pay. They're still making a push. Here goes another tweet here from Kotani Pay. It says the Kotani Pay had a chance to attend Africa's biggest regulatory event. So they're not running from things. They're right up front saying, hey, we're all for regulations. We want to make our voice heard. What regulations are you trying to roll out? It says hashtag RegTech Africa Conference 2023, organized by @RegTech Africa. It says our Nigeria team was on the ground gaining valuable insights from panel discussions and keynote speeches while networking with key industry players. Katani, keep doing good. Keep doing good. I like what I'm seeing from a lot of these businesses building on Stellar. They're hungry right now. That's what we need. That's what I like to see. All right. And if they continue to do well, then the future continues to be bright. All right. So now let's move on to another article here. This article here is from nerdwallet.com. And I want to talk about this because a lot of liquidity, a lot of capital is going to flow out of risky assets. And you see that happening now because of the debt ceiling, things like that. And you're going to see this over the next few months, given a lot of different catalysts that are going on. You're going to see liquidity flow out of like crypto, flow out of some stocks, things like that. Everything goes red. And that liquidity is probably going to flow into T-bills, right? People are going to try to make money off of these T-bills and things like that. Some of the ones that are like the percentage is up like 7%. But let's find out a little bit about treasury bills, right? It says here, treasury bills or T-bills are short-term U.S. debt securities issued by the federal government that mature over a time period of 4 weeks to 1 year. Since the U.S. government backs T-bills, they're considered lower risk investments. The shorter terms to maturity differentiate these from other treasury issued securities. T-bills are sold in increments of $100 up to $10 million. And with a wide range of maturities. I know a lot of you already know this, but there's a lot of new people. They're only into crypto, so they may not understand it. So this is what we're here to do. We spread the information around, and then it brings a better understanding, and then also it brings a better understanding when all that liquidity gets pulled out. Like, it's the same way to understand, like, for instance, a lot of people, they store the value in gold. You watch the charts, you'll see this. They store their value for a little while in gold, silver, platinum, and palladium, right? So they'll all be up, crypto will be red. Then they pull that liquidity out. As the dollar gets stronger, they pull that liquidity out of the commodities. You see all these commodities go red. Then crypto gets green. Everything else gets green, right? So then the dollar, and then it works in a reverse way. So in a similar way, when you have like really, really tense situations, of some of that liquidity that will come out, they still want to make money. The liquidity to come out, they go into something like a T-bill. If it's giving you enough, it's going to make you enough capital, right? So this is good to know, in my humble opinion. Sorry, I might not be eloquent on that, but I'm trying to give you what I can. I'm sure someone else could explain this much more eloquently than I can, but I'm giving you what I've got. All right. How treasury bills work. Treasury bills are assigned a par value or face value, which is what the bill is worth if held to maturity. You buy bills at a discount, a price below par, and profit from the difference at the end of the term. The difference between your discounted price and the par value is essentially the interest earned. It's as simple as that. You gave the government a short-term loan by buying T-bills, and they paid you back with interest at the end of the term. It says how to buy T-bills. Well, I think we all know that from treasurydirect.gov, but just wanted to cover a little bit on that since, T-bills are all the rage right now and everybody's talking about them and such. All right. So this article here is from watcher.guru. It says, what happens if Saudi Arabia accepts the Brics currency? It says the Brics alliance is looking to create a new currency to settle international trade and dethrone the US dollar from its global status. If the new Brics currency gains the trust of other countries, the US dollar could be the first to fall. Now, keep in mind, I know this sounds crazy, and a lot of people will jump to, the dollar is not going to go to zero. No one's saying the dollar is going to go to zero. I don't think that's what they mean to allude to. But what they're saying is the dollar's value and power could be greatly diminished, which would still have an effect on the people that are, heavily using the dollar in the United States and other places, right? So that's what I think this is all about, the diminishing of the dollar, not necessarily the complete destruction of the dollar. It says the global financial power will shift from west to east, creating a new world order. Saudi Arabia is one among the 19 countries that are looking to join the alliance. That number was a little bit higher in other reports, but All right, let's go with that for now. It says, and accept the new currency reported by Bloomberg. If Saudi Arabia joins BRICS or trades with the yet to be released currency, the U.S. could face severe implications. All right. So Saudi Arabia's membership will strengthen the economic power of the BRICS bloc. Saudi is among the world's largest oil producers and exporters, and it possesses significant reserves of oil and natural gas. This could enhance the energy cooperation among BRICS members and potentially increase trade and investment opportunities within the group. Saudi Arabia's prominent role in the global energy markets could lead to closer collaboration in the energy sector among BRICS nations. It could facilitate discussions on energy policies, production levels, and pricing strategies. The development could put BRICS countries to enjoy a greater influence over global energy dynamics. It definitely would. The move could potentially shift geopolitical alignments and power dynamics in Asia and the Middle East. Saudi's participation in BRICS might alter its traditional alliances with other regional global powers, such as United States and European Union. It definitely would. Have you seen how, have you heard how they've been talking about certain things going on? It has not been good. And that relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia is very much strained, right? We'll see how it all shakes out. We'll see. So the inclusion of Saudi Arabia into BRICS could force the European Union to ditch the US dollar. They're under pressure already. I'll say that for sure. If you hear how France is talking about, lessening the reliance on the US dollar, that was a heck of a sign. I'll tell you that much. That was a powerful sign right there. And then, am I correct? I've been seeing articles, I believe, that are about Germany. Now, I'm not sure the validity of this, but there's reports out there saying Germany is going into a recession. Is that true? Anybody out there know? I'm going to look it up again. But I mean, so Europe has a lot to face and a lot to think about, and their banking system is on strings as well. Listen, those infusions of capital and the propping up of these various systems and loose monetary policy still, they're trying to tighten things up. We'll see how it goes. We'll see. All right. So now let's move on here. We're going to end off with a little bit of gold news. I'm never worried about gold. Gold makes me happy. Every time I see it, the future for gold is very bright, especially considering what's going to be happening in the world in the coming years. Gold is a long hold for protecting value, in my opinion. Anyway, this article here is from thedailyhodl.com. It says, central banks to amass $48 billion worth of gold this year amid U.S. dollar weaponization. This is from UBS. Banking giant UBS says demand for gold from central banks around the world is likely to surge this year as countries back away from the U.S. dollar. They see what's coming. The regular people don't see what's coming. We'll continue to stay up to date on things, but fiat currencies, unbacked fiat currency, they're not backed by anything other than the government's word or military might or something that's not a commodity. They look to be in troubled waters in the future. That's all I'm saying. That's what it looks like. If it changes, then we'll adapt. All right. And we'll update our thoughts. But as of right now, they're in trouble. This is why all the banks they're stacking gold. But let's continue on here. I'll let UBS tell you. It says, in a new report, UBS says it expects central banks to accumulate 700 metric tons of gold worth $48.74 billion this year. According to the financial titan, central banks are likely to continue stockpiling gold in the coming months due to persistent inflation and geopolitical concerns. Quote, last year marked the 13th consecutive year of net gold purchases by global central banks at the highest level of annual demand on record dating back to 1950. They're going to need it. If people want to do business in this world in the future and you're going to have all these nations moving to commodity-backed assets, you think they're going to want to do business with someone that doesn't have a commodity-backed asset? Why should I take your fiat backed by nothing? Why should I take that? This is how banks are thinking. So they're not taking chances. Sure, they still have some dollars in reserve. They got a couple other things in reserve. And they're going to have a ton of gold because gold is real. They're going to have that as well to protect their value, make sure they can survive and stay in business, right? Stay dominant in business. It says at 1,078 metric tons in 2022, central banks buying of gold more than doubled. There's a reason for that. More than doubled from 450 metric tons in 2021. Based on 1Q23 data from the World Gold Council, central banks are on track to buy around 700 metric tons of gold this year, much higher than the average since 2010. You tell me why. Something is coming. Something's coming and they know. And they're preparing. They're getting ready. They're preparing. I mean, listen, this is my humble opinion. This is what I'm seeing. All right. Not saying this to move you this way or that way at all whatsoever. You have to make up your own mind, not financial advice. All right. But something is coming. They're preparing themselves. It says UBS also highlights that countries around the world are now hesitant to increase their US dollar reserves. We've heard a lot of different reputable sources say the same thing. It says following the weaponization of the American currency. All right. So once again, you want to read the rest of that articles on the dailyhodl.com. So now that you have that information, what are you going to do with it? I know what I'm going to do with it. So until next time, let's get to the Monday.